Badee, are you here? Hello? Badee, are you here? Hello? Hello, Badee? Kelvin?
Hi.
Hey, thanks for joining.
you?
How you doing, man?
I'm okay, Frank. How are you?
Good, good. I just did this following Jacqui's Zoom because a couple of people from Palestine couldn't wanted to do it later, couldn't make it, and so there's connection issues. But you know, I'm going to go ahead and do it. I wonder if you don't mind if I could ask you a question. What's your read on what's going on in Al-Aqsa and in
Okay.
Palestine, Israel? Yeah, where are you at? Yeah.
Well, I mean, my studies the last couple of years, apart from my professional work, have been working with those Epstein survivors and understanding what's going on a deeper level than is sold via any media at all, which is all belonging to the people implementing all of this, all of it, 100%. Anything you see, isn't it?
Yes.
So, because they own it, unless it's independent media. So I'm quite close to some incredibly intelligent, bright, smart, precognitive, intelligent, independent media. Many things that are happening, they're already predicting 6 months or a year in advance because it's very obvious by looking at the patterns. What I would ask you, first of all, I don't know why after you were Zoom bombed, you're using Zoom. Zoom is a Mossad data collecting app to store things eternally on anybody's digital ID number. If they can get one on somebody, it stays there forever. It's every single word you say on your device while certain apps like Messenger or so and so are onto that number in the room, even if those apps are being used or not, even if the phone is in the room, gets logged and stored on an AI searchable data bank on you. So I would suggest using Jitsi Meet, which is so easy because instead of sending a Zoom link, you just send a web link and it opens in any browser and you have an instant disposable meeting.
I see.
Okay. So you make a one-time link, Jitsi Meet. It gives you a name. You send.
Hi, Jacqui.
Hi.
Jacqui just joined us.
Hey.
Jacqui, you there? I saw.
Yeah, hi,
Hi, Jacqui.
Yeah, Kelvin, thanks for joining. I'm still waiting for Badee, but Kelvin's discussing about a better way to get together other than Zoom. What were you saying, Kelvin? Go ahead.
Just as so what I was saying, Jacqui, is that especially after you guys with Zoom bombs, so everybody connected with those Zoom calls, email chains where everything is on an eternal list. And it's not just the Zoom meeting that gets recorded. They're connected with all the other apps like Apple, Google, Messenger. Everything you say in the room while the phone is in the room and those apps are on your phone gets logged, recorded, put into a data bank, and put into an AI on your digital number. So I should suggest using
Badee, by the way, Kelvin, Badee has just joined us. Badee, can you hear us?
Yes, I hear you.
Ahlan wa sahlan. You know, we set this up. Jacqui is here, Kelvin's here. We set it up, and I'm glad you came and said you were here after iftar. You're from Halil, right? Right now, Badee?
Yes, I am.
You're from Hebron. Yeah. Can you? Sorry, Kelvin, just because Badee was able to connect
fine.
with us.
No, it's okay. I'm just sending you a link that you can understand what I'm talking about.
Badee, what's your read on what's happening in Halil? What's happening in Al-Aqsa? What's going on right now in Palestine?
You know, that situation is escalating even before Ramadan.
Yes.
When the Israelis have been invaded Jenin and killed many Palestinians people there. And this was not first time. They were invaded Jenin city and Jenin camp for many times, and they were assisted and murdered many Palestinians there.
Yes.
And this situation also is continues to include also other places and cities in over Palestine, as what happened in Jerusalem. You know that what has happened in Jerusalem also. Many people around over the world, they watch how the soldiers, they were invaded inside the Aqsa
Right.
and the Masjid al-Qibli, and they were invaded inside the Al-Aqsa, and they were hit and beat people there, and they are arrested them and took them to the jails. There were like 400 Palestinians have been arrested inside the Al-Aqsa when they were trying to defend the Al-Aqsa. The Israeli soldiers, they use all the power and forces and fire. They use rubber bullets and also the metal robot, which is involved with the plastic, and also tear gas and also sound bomb. And we watched some of the trees in the Al-Aqsa yard. It's been firing and burning because
Yes.
of the tear gas. So it was so heavy tear gas, and we watch also how the soldiers, they were treating the Palestinians and beating even the kids and the women
Yes.
for no reason. And this is escalating there just because they want to break the spiritual of the Palestinians people, and they want Palestinians to kneeling for them. And this is remind us with the last Ramadan when they were also invaded the Aqsa for many times, and also Sheikh Jarrah, and after that Gaza joined. This is resistance to defend Al-Aqsa and to defending the Palestinians people who have been killed and injured by the Israeli soldiers. And we saw that Israelis, they were allowed for hundreds of settlers or extremist Israelis to invade Al-Aqsa, was protected and covered by the Israeli soldiers and government. And some of them, Ben Gvir. He is
Yes.
an extremist settler, and he is elected in the Israeli parliament from a Likud party, and he lives in an illegal settlement called Kiryat Arba. And we have been seeing him also. When he was created, a lot of problems with a cover from the government in Al-Aqsa and invaded Al-Aqsa many times. And also he was invaded also Sheikh Jarrah,
Sheikh
and he
Jarrah.
was open an office to him in the tent. And also he planning to make a new office for him in front of the Bab al-Amud, the
Yeah.
Damascus gate.
Damascus Gate. Yes.
And this is what has happened. Despite of the Israelis, they are protect and allow for the Palestinians to do their worship in freedom. They are in the contrary. They were applying collective punishment against the Palestinians, beating them. They didn't allow them to freedom of movement or to come to reach the Al-Aqsa. And they were put on obstacles for them. And we have been so a lines of people waiting to get their chance to snack in Al-Aqsa, to try to reach the Al-Aqsa. People that will have the will, and always have the will to continue to try to reaching Al-Aqsa, to get inside, to pray there. And also, despite of all the obstacles and all of the problems and escalating that Israeli army and settlers, they are do it against the Palestinians. The situation in
Yes.
Hebron is part of this story and not separate. Just today, settlers, and I just posted a video for a settler who carry a gun, automatic gun, and he was scaring and terrorizing the Palestinian people in Tel Rmedi. Yesterday also, many settlers, they were took the roof of a Palestinians occupied building and Babes in the old town area, and started to throw stones against the Palestinians people and the shopkeepers, and they broke Palestinian cars and also shopkeepers' properties. Despite of the soldiers, they are stop them. The soldiers was protect them, and after that, when the Palestinians try to defend themselves, the soldiers start to beat the Palestinians and hit them, and they arrested two Palestinians, young people. One of them, he is a son of one of Palestinians martyr, and he is my friend. And also another boy, he's also belong for one of our activists, his name Arif. And they took them to the police station, but this is take a time till they are reach them to the police station. They arrested them yesterday afternoon, and early morning, this is early morning, they were took them for the police station. Then they transferred them to the Asul detention jail. And I think they are waiting for a court now. One of them, he has been stoned by the settlers and he has been taken to the hospital. I just was talking with the lawyer to follow his case, and she told me that they get late to take him to the police station because he was get a treatment after one of the settlers was stoned him in his head, and they took him for the hospital to give him a treatment.
Yeah, I want to ask
Also,
you, let me just ask you a question then, and we'll get back to Hebron. What do you think is the goal of the settlers attacking Al-Aqsa almost every day now? What do you think the Israeli
They're
government
made
wants?
to be crazy. They're imported and made to be crazy extremists, and they want to see only Jews and a stratified society, the ultimate apartheid, and they want to see a third temple at the end because they've been conditioned with that separatist rubbish from a long time. You know, most of them are coming from Ashkenazis from East Europe. They're not even Jews. They're Khazarians originally. They're not got any Jewish.
Right, you're
blood
saying they
at
want to
all.
Judaize all of Al-Aqsa. Do you agree with
They
that,
want to have
Badee?
this. They want to have their temple there.
Yeah. So they want to bring in Jews and kick out Muslims. They want the Al-Aqsa.
Yeah,
compound.
there are extremist Jews. They're not. You say the problem with Judaism is that it's like if you ask any Israeli what does Jew mean, they're all going to give you a different answer because they never agree about anything. The rabbinical schools and the schools of the different thoughts within Judaism, and then the simplistic interpretation which hits the streets, you find amongst everyday Israelis. Oh, they
Just
hate
a
us.
second, Kelvin. Badee, do you agree that this is what is the goal in your
What do
mind
you think,
of the
Badee?
settlers, the Mustawtinun, going into Al-Aqsa almost every day now?
Why are they doing it?
Why?
Now they want to use what has happened at Ibrahim Mosque an example to copy it and to apply it in Al-Aqsa, because what happens in the Ibrahim Mosque that Israelis, they are after the massacre which has happened in 1994,
right?
Despite of they are applying justice for the Palestinians people, they are in the contrary, they punish the Palestinians who are the victims, and they decided to divide the Ibrahim Mosque for the first time in the history. So timing and placing Ibrahim Mosque, it's divided now, and they converted part of it to be a synagogue, which is the first synagogue or the oldest synagogue in the world in a mosque. And if people they came to visit another part which is converted to be a synagogue, the people that will see the Quran text is still existing this part. So that Israelis now they make all of this is efforts in Al-Aqsa to try to apply the same model which is applied in Ibrahim Mosque, to apply it and to create it in Al-Aqsa. But the Palestinians people they got the lesson, and they learn from their experience about what happened in Ibrahim Mosque. So they are defending hardly, and they do all of their efforts, and by their shields and by their bodies, they are they defend the Al-Aqsa till they are not applied the same model which is being applied in Ibrahim Mosque.
So the goal is they want to divide.
Hebron,
they want to divide Al-Aqsa, the Haram al-Sharif, the Al-Aqsa compound. You think the overall goal is to divide this place and make part of it a synagogue. But people like Jafar, the extremist Jew, he seems to want all of it for Jews. He doesn't even think is Jiver, I think you say his name is Ben Jiver.
Okay.
Jiver,
just let me to continue to
Please,
explain.
Yes, go ahead. Yes.
So, they are succeed in Ibrahim Mosque, so they try to copy this is model and to apply it in Aqsa. But maybe because Al-Aqsa they consider it as the temple area for them, the temple place.
Yes.
So they are looking to take it over all of it, and it's a huge area. It's about the Al-Aqsa area. It's about 144 dunams.
Right.
And that if the Israelis are taking, and many of reports they were coming from Israel saying that Israel they are controlling all Jerusalem except Al-Aqsa area, which is means they are looking for to control this is part which is they consider is out of their control in order that to apply their dreams that to destroy the Al-Aqsa and to replace it with the temple area. So it's not just about to copy the same model of Ibrahim Mosque, but they got the courage from what they are having in Ibrahim Mosque to apply the same plan, or maybe it's more, by including all the Aqsa area, even without to divide it, to replace it all by the temple.
Now, let me just intervene here. Like with Fajr, the morning prayer a week ago, the Israeli soldiers came inside the Al-Aqsa Mosque while Muslims were praying. They say, Badee, that the soldiers and the police came because Palestinians were throwing rocks and fireworks at them. Do you agree with that, that the police came into Al-Aqsa a week ago because they were trying to defend against the Palestinians throwing rocks against the police and rocks against the Jews at the Wailing Wall, you know, the wall where they are praying? The police say we are legitimate, justified in going into Al-Aqsa to attack the people there because they are throwing rocks and fireworks at us. Is that true? Was that true? Was that why the Palestinians were?
Even it's even what they are claiming is true, but we have to go to the root of the problem. When we are talking about the occupation is the action and our resistance reaction. So those Palestinians are trying to defend it themselves, Al-Aqsa, with all the means or the simple things or tools they have it to defend themselves from the soldiers who are invaded Al-Aqsa. We didn't invade any Israeli synagogue. They are allowed for the Israelis to come to invade it. Our Aqsa, and protected by the soldiers. Also, the soldiers, they were always are inside the area of Al-Aqsa. If the soldiers or the police, they are not there, so they will not provoke those Palestinians to let them or to make them they are defending themselves and throw them by this is simple resistance, which is they have rocks or something.
So in your opinion, this is a lie because the Israeli government says we send soldiers and police inside Al-Aqsa because it's not because we wanted to disturb the praying for Ramadan or Fajr. It was because we're responding to rock throwing. This was a lie. Kazab. It's kazab, right?
This is not true. It lies because always the police, always in Ramadan and before Ramadan, the soldiers and Israeli police and the settlers, they were always come inside Al-Aqsa. There are no meaning for them to be in a place for Muslims. This is a big proactive actions against the Palestinians and the prayers. There are no any excuse for them to be in this area. If they are really want to have peace in this area, at least they have to be outside of the Al-Aqsa and not to provoke the Palestinian people and searching them, and they hurt their dignity every single minute and every single hours. The Palestinians, what they do only, they are defining themselves, and this is legally, according to the international law and the occupiers people, they have the right to define themselves by all the means of resistance. Why it's allowed for Ukrainian people?
Let me just interject here.
For the Ukrainian people to struggle against Russian occupation, all the means, and got even military support by all the Western. But the Palestinians not allowed for them to defend themselves.
That's right. So you are saying, Badee, one minute. Badee, you are saying that the people in the Al-Aqsa Mosque a week ago at Fajr prayer were praying, and they were provoked. The police and the soldiers came in to attack. And are they also preparing for the settlers to arrive at the Al-Aqsa compound? It had nothing to do with Palestinians throwing rocks first or fireworks. They were there and they provoked the Palestinians that were really defending themselves from the invasion of the Israeli police inside the mosque, depriving them of prayer. They could not pray. and they could not live peacefully. So what the government is doing is again lying to us, that they say they were required to go into Al-Aqsa because you were throwing rocks at not just the police, but also at the Jews praying at the Wailing Wall, at the wall, which is a lie, according to you. Jacqui, you heard about that too, right? About the
actually, in the beginning of the last meeting and the beginning of today's meeting, I talked quite a bit about that. That the Palestinians inside the mosque are responding to the threat, where the Jewish settlers and people outside of the mosque were threatening to invade. They put up wooden barricades and then they defended themselves. They tried to throw the firecrackers and rocks and whatever, but I doubt they hit the Wailing Wall, because that's a big throw. So they
next door. It's not next door, but there could have been some Palestinians that were so angry at the attack and they're there, like you say, Badee, they are provoked all the time. I been there. I have been in an altercation at the Al-Aqsa compound, and I've been hit and beat up by the police and the soldiers there at the compound. And so even if they were angry and threw rocks there and went, it's not that far from Al-Aqsa where the Wailing Wall is, it's still because the provocation from the police and the soldiers. So it's still not because of Palestinians, because they're responding and defending themselves, and angry because of the invasion by the police. Yes, Badee? Yes.
And also the guarder of the Al-Aqsa, they succeed to catch some of the settlers. They were hiding themselves by Palestinian dresses, and they were bringing themselves as Palestinians, and they tried to get inside Al-Aqsa to make revenge against the Palestinians or to do crimes. But we were lucky that the Palestinians guarders, they were succeed to catch them and discover them. And this is recently just happened some days ago.
Wow, I didn't know that there was some disguise. But this is a pattern. This is ongoing. Frank, I've been trapped in these situations also. Remember a couple of years ago when they closed the mosque and forbid everybody from going to pray inside, and then there were, thousands of Palestinians marching in from towards the mosque, and I got caught in several of these riots. So this is a pattern. This is not a one-time deal. This is a pattern, and I think it's deliberate. And I think you're right, Frank, when you say they have a plan to divide up the Temple Mount, and they don't want to divide up. They just want to kick the Palestinians out. I mean, I've read and I've seen paintings where Israelis fantasize that the whole mosque, Dome of the Rock, gets destroyed, and is destroyed. So they don't want to share the Dome of the Rock. They don't want to share the space. They want to throw the Palestinians out, throw the Muslims out.
So Badee, you were saying they were using at one time a model, the Ibrahim Mosque in Hebron, where now there's a synagogue right next inside the mosque, you could say. But Badee is also saying, but it's probably what's happened is they want to take it one step further and literally destroy the mosque, rebuild the temple, which is the overall goal of many of the extremist Jews, in particular Ben Gvir and others. They want only Jews there, and that's their ultimate goal.
I just wanted to say, for the sake of narrative control, because Al Jazeera and some of the we've never known what to think about Al Jazeera, but actually on this time at this side they've been coming up very positively in support of the Palestinians.
Yes.
And that leads to the second thing I want to say, but also for narrative control, imagine if a bunch of Palestinians with tanks and guns and this went into a synagogue when they were praying at Hanukkah. And it's that's how you have to paint it for people to understand what is going on, or in the church at Easter or something like this. Do you know what I mean? Because it's comparative, and the problem of the West is that they're sold always, the subliminal is sold as this is a democratic country and we need to have all those countries democratic countries and extensions of that empire, and with money printing, debt empire, sucking everything into war. But so that's one thing that I wanted to say, just to balance it out, you know, in the cartoons and things like that, like from an artistic perspective, like turn it around and see what people would see it as another side. The other thing that I wanted to ask actually, Badee, because look, anybody who would know my thinking enough, I actually believe there are only two solutions to this in the long term. I don't believe political solutions work because the political process has been created to fail. I don't believe that it's created with accommodation of an actual solution. Nobody will discuss a solution where everybody is okay and happy. It's like the most forbidden thing on any side to actually say, could there be an actual solution which works? So I do believe that the only two possibilities are an uprising of Israelis and Palestinians together against the establishment, and basically saying we are not going to be used as pawns in a war game, which is exactly what is happening. The people who own Israel don't give a shit about Jews. Honestly, they don't care about Jews at all. And who built that base there, that mafia base there, which basically is a front for. The other solution, so you saw it in the I'd say it's not about the subject of vaccine, but you saw it in the vaccine demonstrations that they were actually starting to come to the streets, talk about how they're being abused, talking about how it doesn't matter who you vote for. The same people are controlling the economics. The same people are controlling the war industry. The same people are firing up the narratives. Doesn't matter who is in the Knesset. It makes no difference as long as, especially that Trump did this very clever thing that he let Netanyahu, you know, Netanyahu probably got Epstein arrested, and Trump got in and whatever, but he let Netanyahu do this thing that the only people allowed in the Knesset are any party which believes in a Jewish sovereign state rather than an equal state for everybody represented there. So they put a gridlock on the political process very, very hard there. All these Kushners and Kissingers and people like that is bad news. So that has to be either reversed. That's the only way that you could, if people within the political system had a conscience and pushed against the forces which creating it. So that's one solution, is that there's an uprising of the, I don't think the everyday Israelis want this. Most people want to live a quiet life. They're tired of being abused. The economy of every place, unless you work for their tech industry, or whatever, is drained out in the last couple of years. So everybody is upset, and they're starting to wake up to what's going on.
I think you're making
so the
a
other solution,
very important point. What was the other solution?
The other solution is that, you know, I was very happy to see the Jordan Times a couple of days ago saying that King Abdullah is actually calling for a unified Arab approach to this situation, which is that he's calling for all the Arab countries to agree and sit and discuss as to what should actually be done. The other solution is the unification of the Arab world. That's the other thing which could bring back light into the situation in this part of the world.
But do you think Jordan is the right country? Do you think Jordan's the right country? Because Jordan, you know, is receiving a lot of money from the United States, as Jacqui set forth, and is a lot of business agreements. Jordan is a normalizer. It's a normalizer of Israel. Litbia Israel, Jordan.
I agree with what you're saying.
How can it really be a country that can push for all the Arabs to get with the Israel if they are collaborating with Israel?
I mean, look, there's always many sides at play. It's like King Hussein had one foot here and one foot here. Recently, the picture that came out of King Abdullah in the Jordan Times had a big picture of King Talal behind. I mean, King Talal was not a Zionist, for example. There's always, I mean, like when there were the last statement of the last Prime Minister of Jordan, who was very, very good, when there were conflicts there before, was saying, look, we've been pushing for a two-state solution. We've believed it's the only reason. But if we had a one state with absolutely equal rights representation for everybody, we would be happy and support and accept that. And I'm wondering because the Jordanian army are actually the caretakers, the Hashemites are the caretakers of the Dome of the Rock, and they should be protecting all of those entrances around. So if they're not now allowed to do that with the strength of the Israeli presence, then there is a political issue going there as well, and there will always be pressure on the kingdom here because the majority is Palestinian to have a right position. The reason that Jordan makes a lot of decisions that it does, Frank, that the World Bank, the IMF, which is basically the same owners as Israel, and it's all the same people. It's all back to a few families, really, at the end of the day. all those things have put Jordan in this position, and the Palestinian voice in Jordan, which is maybe a majority of Palestinians that were kicked out in 1948 and 1967, they've been in eternal debt like a third world country. So since I felt it, and I've seen it a year before the deal of the century, the first move they made was to cap the economy. So anything past a certain amount of economic turnover in terms of getting conditions better, especially in East Amman, where the conditions are very bad, and it's much worse than it ever has been now before, because there's no money, nothing's moving, the streets have almost stopped, like compared to before Corona. So is that everything go past a certain point, I believe, goes back into the World Bank debt sinkhole. So that's why there's the necessity in order to get the substance.
Now, Kelvin, hold on now. Badee, what do you think? Do you really think that the present Israeli government under Bennett really cares about anything other than power? Because didn't Bennett refuse that Ben-Gvir to settle, to storm the Damascus Gate, the Bab al-Hamud, Damascus Gate, and I think it had nothing to do with him protecting Israeli soldiers from conflict, because it's very delicate. I think he doesn't like Gvir. Gvir is a member of Likud, the opponent party that could take over now, and I think it was just attacking Gvir, Ben-Gvir, the extremist Jew, who's a member of Likud, because Bennett has lost his majority. He doesn't care about security of Palestinians, doesn't care about Jews. I don't think he cares about the police. He just cares about maintaining power and attacking a member of Likud, which is Gvir, and because he did authorize Gvir to go to Sheikh Jarrah. Gvir went to Sheikh Jarrah right in front of the house of one of the Palestinians that was to be evicted, Barra Sheikh Jarrah, and he was there, Gvir, and Bennett authorized it. He said it's okay, but not Damascus Gate, because now this political situation has changed. What do you think, Badee? Do you really think the Israeli government just is about power? They want Jews to be in power, but Bennett seems to me he just wants to stay in power and doesn't really care about anybody but himself and power and money. What do you think?
Okay, let's explain first about the Jordanian role in Al-Aqsa. The Israelis have an agreement with Jordanians there that they shouldn't allow for any else of the Palestinians, prayers or Muslims to come to inside Al-Aqsa, and the Israelis didn't respect that. And even recently, the Jordanian Ministry of Affairs, he was talking about it and they criticized Israel, and they were regard the Israeli ambassador, and they were talk with him in very hard language about that, and they criticize Israel. And this is one the point. Second point, Israeli governments, not just this government, all the Israeli government, they are not really care about the international's situation. Why? For very simple reason. Because Israel still live in comfortable occupation. What I mean in comfortable occupation, because there are no any sanctions applied against Israel to make Israel to listening to the sounds of the peace or the voice of peace, because Israelis, they are not really paying prices or high prices about their occupation, since there are no sanctions and also punishment against what they are doing to humiliate the international law, and also to humiliate and kill the Palestinians their daily life. We have not to forget that Al-Aqsa is located in Jerusalem, in the south part, in the east part of Jerusalem, which is occupied in 1967. And this is part of Palestine, which is occupied in 1967, is considered an illegal occupation. And settlers, and this is part, is considered illegal, also illegally, and also criminal crimes. So that because there are no will and determination by the international community, especially the governments, to punish and to apply sanctions against Israelis, so Bennett government and all the governments which was before, they were not listening for the voice of peace, and they not give any attention for this is international committee and international law. Don't forget that Bennett himself in 2012, when he was the Ministry of the Army, he signed to build a new settlement in Hebron, which is they are now building this settlement right now in Hebron, in Shuhada Street, which is used to be an occupied area. And this used to be the main bus station in Hebron. And now they are turned this is and converted to be a new settlement in Hebron. So they are built already the third floors and they are continued. And Bennett himself, he was proudly said, I killed many Palestinians and Arabs when he was in the army. So what we can accept from those models of leaders in Israel, those leaders, they are only believes in power because they have the power and the authority and the money, and they get a blind support. They get a blind support from the West, especially from America. That's why are not caring, and because there are no any sanctions and punishment applying against Israel. What happened in Ukraine, it shows us clearly the double standards which is applying in this world. And it's allowed for Ukrainian people to defend themselves and to use all means of weapons or resistance to defend themselves, while the Palestinians, for them, it's forbidden. And always Israel bringing an accuse. Such what they said that they were invaded Al-Aqsa because the people they were throwing stones against them. Why you have been inside the mosque? What is the reason behind of to be in a holy place for Muslims and considers as one the third is holy places in Islam?
It's provocation. It's provocation.
Very much so. So, but the BDS movement is as you're saying, there's hardly any sanctions against Israel, really. There's a few, but the BDS movement is getting stronger, but it's not enough. Israel says, well, it's provoking, like you say, Kelvin, this whole thing about entering Al-Aqsa, but then Gaza, Hamas sends missiles, and I think Israel is provoking that as well. And Hamas is saying we are defending the people because Abu Mazen, is he defending Palestinians? What is he doing other than talking
He's
about?
comfortable. I'm sure he's comfortable.
Very comfortable.
Personally.
Hamas sends missiles.
Abu
Hamas
Mazen,
is not
converted with Israel, condemn our resistance.
Truly. In fact, when there were killings, and I don't necessarily support violence, but I can understand the defense of the Palestinians and the need, to seek some type of defense of the state, including violent reactions. Abu Mazen condemned the killings, even though, there have been many Palestinians that have been killed. Then Hamas sends missiles and says, look, this is a red line, Al-Aqsa.
And imprisoned.
You can say Hamas
not
in a
only
way.
killed, imprisoned, tortured.
Yes.
Children imprisoned and tortured.
Hamas has been categorized as a terrorist group, but is not Hamas pretty much defending the only group really that's organized, other than some activist groups in the West Bank, as yourself, defending Palestine by sending, I think they are trying to defend Palestine because Abu Mazen is doing less than nothing really to help his own people and collaborating with Israel. So how could Hamas be called a terrorist? And Hamas, you can say, yes.
Listen, I do this is resistance against Israel occupation since I was 15 years old. I am now 49 years old. So 70% of my age, it's resistance against occupation. I believe that with an armed resistance against occupation, but also I can understand those people who are applying resistance with all the means. And Israel didn't leave for us any options or for those people only to resist the Israeli occupation, because there are a lot of pressures coming by Israel and by America and many. They are supporting Israel, blind support. There are no justice. They are show for us as governments. Maybe we got a support by people, but most of the Western governments, they are give a blind support for Israel, and the head of this is Western countries is USA. They give them billions of dollars and weapons for free. And we see that when we go to the Security Council, that how is our situation as Palestinians, always they use veto to pass any decision to support us. And this is make the Palestinians very upsetting and angry, because when we watch now the double standards very clear in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia, people, they can become more angry about what we live in our life. The Israelis, what is happened in Palestine since like 74 years is not a war. It's more complicated than war. Many wars have been happened in the world and stopped. Many issues being happened